Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today. I'm Sahih Samsudin. To begin our bulletin, here's a quick look at the stories we are following. US President Donald Trump publicly defended the US attacks on Iran as necessary to confront what he described as a sick and sinister regime and to halt threats from Iran's missile and nuclear program. Trump stated the campaign could last several weeks but emphasized it was proceeding according to plan, asserting that a large number of Iranian leaders were killed and that continued military pressure was needed. Britain's Prime Minister has defended his actions in West Asia on Monday, brushing off US President Donald Trump's criticism of Britain for not joining strikes against Iran by saying his decisions were guided by law and the national interest. Additionally, he allowed the limited use of British military bases by the US on Sunday after British citizens came under attack by Iranian drone and missile strikes, but he stood by his decision not to join offensive strikes on Iran. The US Embassy in Saudi Arabia's capital came under a drone attack, according to the Saudi Defense Ministry early on Tuesday. In a statement posted on the US social media company X platform, the ministry spokesperson said the embassy was struck by 2 drones. Initial estimates noted the attack caused a limited fire and minor material damage to the building, with no casualties reported. Qatar Energy has suspended production of liquefied natural gas at its facilities in Ras Laffan Industrial City and Musaid Industrial City following Iranian drone strikes on its critical energy infrastructure. This has effectively stopped output from one of the world's largest LNG export hubs. Qatar accounts for about 20% of global LNG supply and is a major supplier to both Asia and Europe. Iran declared the Strait of Hormuz closed on Monday, with Revolutionary Guards vowing to ignite any enemy ship daring passage through the world's top oil route. Tehran controls the narrow waterway, making the threat real despite risk of massive US naval retaliation. The move threatens 20% of global crude flows, already sparking oil prices surges amid tanker fires and missile barrages rocking the Gulf. Major Asian indices mostly fell amid rising geopolitical tensions and higher oil prices. Japanese shares and the yen fell on Monday, while government bonds rose. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index dropped sharply, sliding around 2.4%, led by losses across risk-linked sectors after Middle East tensions spike. Mainland China markets also edged lower, with the CSI 300 and Shanghai Composite easing modestly. European stocks, meanwhile, clocked the biggest one-day decline in 3 months on Monday, swept up in a global sell-off in risk assets as the US-Israeli war against Iran expanded with no end in sight. The pan-European stocks 600 closed down 1.7% at its lowest level in more than 2 weeks after closing at a record high on Friday. Canada and India are aiming to finalize a Comprehensive Trade Pact, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, CEPA, by the end of 2026 to significantly boost economic ties between the two countries. Both governments see the agreement as a way to double bilateral trade to about $50 billion by 2030, up from around $9 billion in 2024 to 2025. The Malaysian men's hockey team suffered their first defeat in the World Cup qualifiers after losing to Pakistan 3-5 in the Group B game at the Suez Canal Authority Hockey Stadium in Ismailia on Monday. The Speedy Tigers were leading 3-2, but the South Asian nation came back to beat them 5-3. US President Donald Trump on Monday said he ordered the attack on Iran to thwart its nuclear and ballistic missile programs, vowing to pursue the war between 4 to 5 weeks. He said, without providing evidence, the threat from Iran had been imminent when he made the decision to order the strikes.
This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. They were on the road to getting one legitimately through a deal that was signed foolishly by our country. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders.
Trump added a central premise of the fight was to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon, which Tehran has denied doing, and thwart its long-range ballistic missile program. He also said the objectives of the war included annihilating Iran's navy and the long-standing US goal of preventing Iran from supporting armed forces groups elsewhere in the region. US Senate leaders clashed in debate with differing reactions on Monday over US President Donald Trump ordering strikes on Iran over the weekend. On the US Senate floor, Republican and Senate Majority Leader John Thune said President Trump and his administration relentlessly pursued a diplomatic solution to Iran. Meanwhile, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer said Trump has launched America into a full-scale conflict against one of the most fervent adversaries, and it's not what the American people want.
This is a war of choice, not necessity. And regardless of whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, or even if you don't pay attention to politics, there's one thing almost everyone agrees on. We are sick and tired of endless wars in the Middle East. And there is real danger that this is the road we are on right now.
The situation has sparked a significant partisan divide in Washington, with Republicans largely backing Trump's action as lawful and necessary defense, while Democrats and some Republicans are pushing back on constitutional grounds and seeking to reclaim Congress' war powers. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Monday said he stood by his decision not to support initial joint US-Israeli strikes against Iran after US President Donald Trump criticised his approach. Trump criticised Starmer for taking too long to allow US use of air bases.
Mr. Speaker, the United Kingdom was not involved in the initial strikes on Iran by the US and Israel. That decision was deliberate. We believe that the best way forward for the region and for the world is a negotiated settlement. President Trump has expressed his disagreement with our decision not to get involved in the initial strikes. But it is my duty to judge what is in Britain's national interest. That is what I've done, and I stand by it. Targeted British ships in the Red Sea.
The Prime Minister said the decision had been made now to allow the US military to use their bases to strike storage depots and limited defensive purpose. Starmer stressed that he believed the killing of Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei has led Iran to strike military and economic targets. On Monday, a drone strike hit a British airbase in Cyprus, causing limited damage and no casualties in an escalation entangling an EU member in the conflict surrounding Iran. Britain then had moved additional air assets to Ikuti in anticipation of US action against Iran, although it said that British bases would not be used. The US Embassy in Riyadh has been hit by drones, causing a limited fire and minor damage. Saudi state media reported that 2 drones struck the US Embassy in the capital early in the morning. Saudi Arabia's defense ministry confirmed the attack in a post on X, saying initial assessment indicate limited damage. Witnesses reported hearing a loud explosion, with flames and black smoke seen rising over Riyadh's diplomatic quarter, where several foreign missions are located. No injuries have been reported, as the building was empty at the time. The incident comes amid ongoing Iranian missile and drone strikes targeting Gulf states that host US bases. Iranian media reported on Monday a senior official of Iran's Revolutionary Guard has declared that the Strait of Hormuz is now officially closed and warned that Iran will open fire on any vessel attempting to pass through it. This marks Tehran's strongest warning yet since announcing the closure of the key export route on Saturday, a move that could block about 20% of global oil flows and drive prices sharply higher. With the closure, Tehran has carried out its long-standing threat to block the narrow waterway in retaliation for any attack on the Islamic Republic. The strait is the world's most critical oil export route, linking major Gulf producers including Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq and the United Arab Emirates to the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. About 20% of the world's daily oil consumption passes through the Strait of Hormuz, which is only around 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. Qatar halted its production of liquefied natural gas on Monday as Iran continued to strike Gulf countries in retaliation for Israel and US strikes against it, prompting precautionary shutdowns of oil and gas facilities across the West Asia. State-owned Qatar Energy, 82% of whose clients are Asian, was set to declare force majeure on its LNG shipment after Iranian drone attacks on facilities in the sprawling Ras Laffan complex. The complex hosts Qatar's gas trains with massive processing units that supercool natural gas into liquid form for export by ship. Drones also hit the Masai industrial zone in Qatar's south that lies far from the gas fields but is home to petrochemical and manufacturing facilities. Qatari LNG production is equivalent to about 20% of global supply and plays a major role in balancing both Asian and European markets' demand for the fuel. Oil prices jumped as much as 13% intraday to above $82 a barrel, the highest since January 2005, as the conflict ground shipping to a near halt in the Strait of Hormuz, through which a fifth of global oil supply flows. Filipino activists burned images of US President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during a protest in Manila on Monday. Activists said that the US-Israel-led attacks against Iran were meant to destabilize the region and urged for an end to the conflict as it would affect the lives of millions of people, including the overseas Filipino workers in the Middle East. Over 2.4 million Filipinos are currently staying in West Asia, mostly as workers, with 975,000 people in the UAE, 250,000 in Qatar, 31,000 in Israel, and 800 workers in Iran, according to the Philippines Foreign Ministry. The Department of Migrant Workers on Monday said at least 80 overseas Filipino workers in Dubai have expressed intent to be repatriated amidst the ongoing tensions. Philippine Secretary of Migrant Workers Hans Leok Kakdek said they are preparing for repatriation assistance, but this could not be done yet as the UAE airspace remains closed. Kakdek said mandatory repatriation will be triggered once alert level is raised to 4. United Arab Emirates is currently under alert level 2. The US-Israeli air attacks against Iran expanded on Monday, with Israel attacking Lebanon in response to strikes by Hezbollah, while Tehran fired missiles and drones at Israel, Gulf states, and a British air base in faraway Cyprus. On a related matter, a first charter flight carrying 127 Italian citizens stranded in Oman or moved there from Dubai landed in Rome's Fiumicino airport late on Monday. The operation came as Italy works to repatriate its citizens stuck in West Asia following the US-Israeli strike on Iran and the subsequent escalation in the region. Embassies and consulates in Abu Dhabi, Dubai and Oman are working to transfer Italian nationals to airports still operating in the region. The Foreign Ministry in a statement said the first repatriation flight operated by Oman Air left Muscat at 13:11 GMT and arrived in Fiumicino at 2026 GMT as showed by flight tracking data. Among the passengers were Italians returning home as well as citizens of other countries who made their way back to Europe with assistance from the Italian embassy. At Rome's Fiumicino airport, meanwhile, operations remained calm on Monday. Out of roughly 800 daily flights, 45 services to and from West Asia were cancelled, according to airport authorities. Larger disruptions were reported on Saturday when the flare-up in the region left hundreds of travellers grounded. Coming up next, Canada and India aim for trade pact by year-end. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said on Monday India and Canada will aim to conclude a free trade pact by the end of this year as the two countries seek to move past years of diplomatic friction to get economic ties back on track. Carney made the statement during his first visit to New Delhi, India.
There has been more engagement between the Canadian and Indian governments in the last year than there has been in more than 2 decades combined. So, this is not merely the renewal of a relationship. It is the expansion of a valued partnership with new ambition, focus, and foresight, a partnership between two confident countries charting our own course for the future.
Meanwhile, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said New Delhi and Ottawa hope to increase bilateral trade to $50 billion by 2030 from nearly $9 billion in 2024-2025.
हमारा लक्ष्य है कि 2030 तक हमारा व्यापार $50 बिलियन तक पहुंचे। आर्थिक सहयोग का पूरा पोटेंशियल अनलॉक करना ये हमारी प्राथमिकता है। इसलिए हमने कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव इकोनॉमिक पार्टनरशिप एग्रीमेंट को
The two sides have agreed to the terms of reference on a comprehensive economic partnership. They also agreed on a US $2.6 billion uranium deal and will work on building small modular nuclear reactors and advanced reactors. The Indian government and Canada's Cameco have signed a uranium supply agreement to support India's nuclear ambitions and to work towards a clean, reliable base load power. On another note, India said it was deeply concerned by the US and Israeli strikes on Iran and urged all sides to pursue dialogue and diplomacy to protect civilians, according to the Foreign Ministry in a news conference in New Delhi on Monday. He urged all sides to exercise restraint, avoid escalation, and prioritize the safety of civilians. Dialogue and diplomacy, he said, should be pursued to de-escalate tensions and address underlying issues, adding that sovereignty and territorial integrity of all states must be respected.
The sovereignty and territorial integrity of all states must be mentioned. Our missions in the region, of course, are in touch with Indian nationals and their and various community associations, and have issued advisories asking them to remain vigilant, stay in contact with the missions, and follow local security guidance.
The Indian reaction came hours after the US and Israel launched a joint military operation against Iran. Both countries launched large-scale missile attacks across the country, targeting the top Iranian leadership and key military sites.
Bersihkan penapis penghawa dingin dan tetapkan 24 darjah Celsius untuk lebih jimat.
Stocks in emerging Asia markets stumbled on Monday as military strikes by the United States and Israel on Iran sent investors fleeing to the relative safety of the dollar, gold and bonds. Japanese shares and the yen fell on Monday while government bonds rose. The Nikkei opened at 57,976.20, down 874.07 points. China's equity benchmarks were little change on Monday in the wake of the Iran conflict as surges in energy, defense and gold stocks offset plunges in airline and tourism shares. The Shanghai Composite SSE Index opened at 4,151.80 points, down 11.08 points or 0.27%. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index, which is more susceptible to the global market volatility, dropped over 2% after opening at 26,305.58 points, down 324.96 points or 1.22%. Elsewhere, stocks in Taiwan dropped as much as 2.3%. The Taiwan Stock Exchange main index was down 137.0 points at 35,277.48. European shares fell across the board on Monday as the conflict in West Asia showed no signs of easing, while energy and defense stocks jumped. The pan-European stock 600 fell 1.8% to its lowest since mid-February to 622.35 points by 8:12 a.m. local time, retreating from a record high hit on Friday, with most sectors in the deep red.
Der DAX ist schwach und nervös gestartet und der Grund dafür liegt natürlich auf der Hand. Das ist die Auseinandersetzung im Nahen Osten, Iran und die Furcht davor, wie das weiter eskalieren kann. Und die grundsätzliche Ausrichtung ist, dass wir extrem nervös sind über das, was dort passiert.
Energy majors Shell, BP and Total Energies all gained over 5% each, falling oil prices, which surged as much as 13% after shipping in the crucial Strait of Hormuz was disrupted. Fresh military strikes by the United States and Israel on Iran continued after weekend attacks that killed Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, prompting Tehran to launch missile barrages across the region and raising fears the conflict could widen and potentially draw in neighboring countries. Coming out in sports, Malaysia fall to Pakistan in second Group B clash. Stay with us. The national men's hockey squad missed its chance to strengthen their position at the top of Group B after going down 3-5 to Pakistan in their second match of the 2026 World Cup qualifiers in Ismailia, Egypt on Monday. The defeat saw Sarjit Singh's men slip to second place in the group, overtaken by Pakistan, who now have a maximum 6 points from 2 matches. Malaysia began the match with high intensity, dominating play from the opening minute, and were rewarded when Muhajir Abdul Rauf struck a field goal in the 12th minute. 2 minutes later, Malaysia extended their lead when penalty corner specialist Muhammad Akhimullah Anwar Isuk converted to put the country comfortably ahead at 2-0. Stung by the early setback, Pakistan fought back through a field goal by Wahid Ashraf Rana in the 14th minute before Zikriya Hayat levelled the score at 2-2 just 2 minutes later. In the third quarter, Muhammad Fitri Sari reignited Malaysia's hopes by calmly converting a penalty stroke in the 40th minute to restore a 3-2 lead. However, the advantage did not last long as Pakistan struck 3 times through Nadim Ahmad, Sufyan Khan and a final goal by Ahmad Muhammad. Malaysia will complete their group stage campaign with a must-win clash against China tomorrow. The top 3 teams overall from this qualifying campaign will secure automatic berth at 2026 World Cup. Meanwhile, national coach Sarjit Singh said his players didn't take their chances well.
We had 6 penalty corner, we did not convert any, and they had, we had scored from 6, we scored 1, they had 1 penalty corner and they scored. We had the chances to win the game, but for finishing, let us down today. We need to be good in the D. We are giving soft goals to Pakistan, we need to improve that. Against China, it's very important, the marking in the D is very important. We need to win the game, there is no other way. We need to beat China to qualify for the semi-finals.
With the defeat, world number 13 Malaysia have only 3 points from their 6-1 win over Australia, and they need to collect full points against China tomorrow to qualify for the semi-finals. Malaysia need to finish top 3 in the 8th nation meet to qualify for the World Cup, co-hosted by Belgium and the Netherlands from 14th to 30th August. That's it from us this afternoon. Malaysia Tonight comes at 8:30 p.m. this evening on TV1 and My TV's Berita RTM news channel. Thank you for watching and have a good day.